woke up this morning and for calling that sleep. The wolves outside laying waste to the sheep.
So let's talk about that last thing you just said from everybody. Putting this team together and creating, having everybody on the same page, and then you're doing this and you're on this. And how do you guys organize this team? Because it's not just Fish and Emmy. It's not just Emmy and Fish. It's this amazing group of people you have.
I know. I'm very thankful for the great people that I do have. I mean, of course, you know, with every team, when you're, like, let me start out this way. When you're in Nashville, you can buy a team, and it's going to be perfect. I had to build my team from the ground up and work that way, and work with people that I already love, and just continuing to define their positions and make them more comfortable within them. And that takes time. I mean, I really had to sit down and figure out where I wanted everybody to be, what I wanted everybody to do, and if they even wanted to do those, if they even wanted to fill those positions, you know. So for me, it was a lot of, you know, just how, again, communication with them, you know, just trying to figure out where everybody fit within this puzzle, you know. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess breaking it down kind of in a hierarchy form, food here, we are blessed enough.
We are very
the team of 5 that we co-produced albums together. That means produced me, and both will coach me. Now I've had Sam, and we've done other projects, but we work very closely between, we call it small circle productions, and that is Randall Hamilton and his dad.
Yeah, Chuck Mock.
Chuck Mock, he has a different studio. So those,
In Ohio.
yeah, in Ohio.
Yep.
Work between 2 studios.
2 studios.
That's wild to me.
I know, a lot of people think that's extremely wild, but it kind of is.
And to Chuck and Randall's credit, those 2 as engineers have to work so close together that's what makes it not feel wild to us. It's only because of their skill and dedication, because otherwise that is a crazy idea. 26 songs divided by 2 different studios, 2 different states.
And have something that sounds cohesive.
Right. But I could tell you the process to that as we go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
But within that Small Circles Productions, then of course those 2, Abby, me, and Mother Hamilton, and we all wear different hats and take turns at different times. So like on Emmy's own sideshow, Mother Hamilton was the executive producer that set the vision for that, and I know that's helped Emmy define what's this going to sound like.
Great out.
Oh, but
Yeah, love that now. And Chuck Mott overseeing all the mixing and pretty much a lot of the production of our side project, Strong Drivers. And so now that I got to wear the head of taking the wheel on this Demeanor album, that meant if I'm thinking food pyramid, that top of that pyramid is going to be the 5 of us, you know, as far as production. But we did kind of commit like a big part of my pitch if we're going outlaw country and honoring that kind of musical history. Of course, Emmy wanted to capture the tradition of that sound and also modernize it. And so we bring in a lot of guest players and stuff like that. And so we actually combined our Rolodexes of what I call the Tennessee team and the Toledo team up in Ohio, and recruited, handpicked.
I'll be raising Cain while I'm still able, not throwing stones, I'm wild and free. There ain't no shame in being shameful. Let Jesus be the judge between
Players that would accent the sound that Emmy's going for. But I also knew I was going to hand select people that I knew were such fans of Emmy's that they weren't just going to play it like a session job.
Right.
You know what I mean? In fact, weird fact about this album, no Nashville charts were used on this entire album.
Really?
all these players, when we get out on the timeline as we go on, but once we get to their part of it, we're willing to, if they were within 5 hours of me, meet in person, play through them, the two of us, whether it's even playing it on a Bluetooth speaker or us actually strumming it out, they were willing to actually be enthused enough and sit in my yard. Just two people out in a country yard playing a fiddle and actually just bouncing the ideas of like, I was thinking this, and this, you know. And then I could go like, well, I was thinking this, and this. And then we come up with different ways about it and stuff. We recruited Jason Jarrett, who was probably one of the primary guitar players on this one.
That's
just so.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
Like he is.
Where is he in Ohio?
He's in Ohio.
Okay.
But
He's fantastic.
we know he's got his own studio. I mean, he's a professional, with a guitar studio. Nah, man, that wasn't enough. He let me pick him up by the collar, throw him in my truck,
Yeah.
throw him down to Tennessee.
Oh, really?
For 3 days of what I called Guitar Mageddon.
Decent.
I'm gonna send them a little video that we're on the way. So we're on the way. We have probably 7 guitars in here,
I don't know. Yes, 7,000 maybe.
amps, all that stuff. I found Jay.
Kind of
found
approach it
me.
that way, where I was trying to play with a little bit of dynamics so that you don't have to do a lot of volume automation with the guitar.
That's how it's natural dynamics,
Yeah.
where it's the band and each individual instrument doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
We are stuck in a traffic jam, y'all.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And so we are discussing in great detail every single guitar arrangement before we go up Clinch Mountain. But I don't know if there's a traffic jam at the top of the mountain or what, but we're definitely in the thick of it here. And we're not even in like one of the big cities where you should have a traffic jam. We're just manufacturing one on the mountain for some reason. But we'll get there. And we just stayed up day and night in that studio, only focusing on guitars, because he was willing to do that, to come down and be in the room instead of just read out the actual chart.
I think musicians just had so much love for me and you, and that's such a
Exactly.
beautiful thing. I'm
That
so thankful to work with them.
comes through the music, I think. I do think that you hear the album tracks like, these people aren't just great players that are doing their job. These people are in the room with that I've Tressa. They're loving what she's doing, and then that vibe her vocals up. And it's pretty cool that people were willing to do that. Even we have, some session players from far away, like Ben Babylon, and obviously I couldn't go grab him by the collar and throw him in my truck quite as easy.
No.
But even with that, no national charge. He would take the time to either I would send long notes, and then he would call me and kind of review them and put the time in. Nothing was done as fast and almost easy, but it is fast and
Formulaic is the charts and
be like, thank you.
boom.
Yeah, it was actually very organic. They were either in the room. Steve Rutledge, when he played piano for us on, and he was my producer on my latest album. Yeah, and actually Steve, rather than saying he could have floated it in, he's got his own studio, but he was like, why don't you guys come over, we'll spend the day together.
Nice.
And we wanted to do that because we were thinking of changing the arrangement a bit, so he actually helped us kind of decide on that before he did the piano parts. And I was just like, this ain't how most artists get to rock. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, this cello player is going to come in. We got an hour for that.
Yeah.
So make sure you got the charts and everything. And they would do a great job. Great cello player. Sure. Great cello player. But not over go, nah, if I'm playing cello on Emi's album, give me a heads up, give me some notes, give me a couple weeks to listen to this thing. I'm going to come over your house and
we're going to, yeah.
It's winter time now. I'm just sneaking up in your attic and practice the cello for you and stuff. But everybody was so committed and so enthused.
do want to circle back to something you said about how about your team and how you could go to Nashville and you could buy a team and they'd be perfect. I would challenge that because I think what you have built is people that love you and are so fierce and protective of your vision, as opposed to, I think, if you bought 5 people that might have more experience in the corporate world of music, it's less about your vision. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but more about them getting their next job too, and them, you know what I mean?
I agree with you.
I don't feel like your team is just trying to build a resume.
No.
They genuinely are into what you're doing.
They're trying to build mine.
Yeah.
And that's something that's fantastic and just so incredible. I mean, I would have never thought, with so many people would be behind me.
All right, well, let's talk. Do we want to talk that, or we want to talk about? I do want to talk about this. 2 studios. So we have these conversations for hours when we're driving, because my process has always been get everybody in the room, everybody's looking at each other, and we're just playing the song together. And so when he said, I'm waiting on this guitar to come in, and I'm working on this conga, or whatever it is. I don't know that there's any conga in her music.
There is no conga.
There's no
If you were looking
conga.
for that, it's not there.
I did not play conga in this project.
No charge for congas on this album.
There's another T-shirt. No conga. But my point is, it's just amazing to me that you get this cohesive sound when you're getting stuff from so many different places.
Yeah.
So what's your mindset on that, and yours as well?
So mine, I guess being finicky, there's actually a lot of rules to the road to keep that consistency. From a production standpoint, I look at production, it's my job not to influence what the artists go for, but to more be like an amp. Like if a great guitar player walks in a room, that's all in their hands. All that talent is right there. Right. If you got them sitting over there, they're not plugged in, you're hearing like, wow, what a lot of talent. But if you can plug them into the right amp, it's not doing any playing for them, but it's making it bigger. It's giving some filters and things like that, kind of what you do. And that might make them start playing better, because when they hear themselves sounding good, then they're going to perform better. To do that, though, if you're going to use 2 studios, number one, you don't use 2 studios for no reason. You only use them if they're making it better. A lot of that comes down to knowing that we can trust both engineers. So Randall, forget that he's daddy, is one of the most talented engineers that knows sound tech, mixers, and he is the most educated of all of us, the only formally educated sound tech on the entire team.
What else can I say? It's your size to me.
I like that. I like this whole thing a lot. I learned everything I know from messing things up and having to fix them. He's learned stuff he knows because he learned. And Chuck up in Toledo is a professional drummer that little by little transformed into having his own studio too. Luckily, they're both buddies and they have their own language. They get on our nerves because within the Pro Tool tracks, they have like personal jokes within each little note inside each thing. They'll be making each other laugh in 2 different states at the same time.
Working on something, I'll hear him in the other room go. I noticed it, but they work so beautifully together, and I think that's my whole thoughts on it as well. Is that it kind of comes to that communication again.
Absolutely.
They're pretty similar too.
Yeah, you couldn't do it with just any 2 studios, I don't think, even if they're both incredibly professional studios.
Right.
You'd get a mix of sound that don't match all the time.
Right.
But also, I will credit, like, Randall, you know, once I gave my pitch, like, hey, y'all, can I produce this album? And everybody's like, yeah, go ahead. Well, then it was time to say, but everybody else challenged the ideas, you know, make it better. And one of Randall's that just blew me away, and this was before we went into real production, is he was like, you know, if we're gonna do this outlaw, let's do it the old school way. Let's actually, I mean, there's a lot of great plugins out there and amps in your computer screen, and I'm not against those things. I love them. But Randall was like, let's mic the amps. Let's get air in the room, go through the trouble to crank the amp and all this stuff, no matter who's playing guitar. He's got a lot of guitars.
Sing Mary Jane, hallowed be thy
Grass holes.
Grass holes.
I'll get a monitor mix.
Yeah, there we go.
I don't care, jackpot, fiddly squad, my money from every I was paying.
Yeah, man. So what are we doing? Are you just playing through the tune? Yeah.
Worry about yourself, worry about me. Need a little help now. We all got sticks, we all got stones. Big glass houses, closet full of phones. Worry about yourself, worry about me.
You know, and then when we're getting the steel tracking, let's not go straight into the floor. Put an amp in the other room, isolate that thing, you know. And if when he said it, I was like, we're going to set that standard. We're going to have to set that standard for 20 songs. And I don't just mean the rip-roaring songs. There's some really intimate, beautiful songs, you know, like out of your old catalog kind of stuff. You know, they're very moving pieces. That, but once he pitched that, it was such a good idea that we stuck by it for all 26 songs, to the degree that when it came time, so like when Jason Jarrett came down, did the 3-day Guitarmageddon, he would still have some more tracking a little bit up when he gets back up in Ohio. We logged the actual same amps, microphones, everything about the gear into my truck as I'm driving back and forth. Just a little side note, I've been living with Emmy's family for
Pig in the rain, pig in the rain, pig in the rain, pig in the rain. Mid-pig, come out the rain.
So once a month I live with them, then I live in Gatlinburg, then I live back in Toledo, and I do this triangle of mountainism every month. But that means like I'd swoop by and then be like, oh, we need that guitar tracking. And instead of saying, Jason's got great gear up north, we said, no, same gear.
Take it out.
Same, throw it in the truck, lug it up to Chuck's studio. His studio is called Happy Hands Club Studio. Lug it out, roll it through the loading dock, plug in all the same stuff.
Yeah.
And that's really the kind of work that it takes to keep that consistency of sound, especially for a double album.
Yeah.
You know, you want to write where you have the freedom to expand a lot of things, but you got to also have some common denominators, keeping the sound of it all together and cohesive. And we all put in the work on it, you know. But then from there, it is a lot of just, it sounds silly, every month in this triangle of Yankee Billy. Your dad called them Yankee Billies. We got all these up northern players on our Tennessee team. I like that. But within that triangle, a lot of it is me driving a literal hard drive from one studio down I-75 or Route 23, whichever way I take, plugging it into a little Blackbird studio, getting out the individual stems and tracks. Then me and Randall would go through them, and I'd be like, when I was up north, I took the liberty of, I pre-edited some of this stuff. I already put a fade on the front of that, but you might want to do this and that. And then he would go through, and with each individual stem, he would say, I'm going to do a little pre-editing too, and I'm going to set this here. And
Explain stem for people who...
how would you explain stems? Every single instrument of sound or anything you utilize for audio, if it was mic'd at that moment in time, is going to be on screen to us. It's called a stem. It's horizontal and linear,
Just a separate...
and it's a separated track. So like when Abby did what I call foundation tracks to start off the entire song, she would be on microphone singing what we call a stretch track. That's just a guide.
You and me, well, we ain't no saints. No prayer's gonna save our soul. Ain't no fire and there ain't no grave when they come to take us home. When they come to take us home.
But the guitar amp would be in the other room as she's playing. Those would be two different stems, even though to our ear I'm hearing her voice and the guitar at the same time. But they can go up, and you can drive a hard drive down. There's been times I've hit 27 stems of whatever they're doing. And it's
inside to isolate or what to use.
Yeah, what to isolate, what to use. And luckily I have two experts at my disposal between Chuck and Randall, and they communicate so well together that it does make it a little bit easier on me. But that didn't mean I could go up. So in the summertime, we get to the point where it's time where I said, okay, we're all going to kind of split our jobs. We had enough information in the system of all 26 songs were written, and at least the tracking was started, to where I basically said, Emmy, you're not going to hear from me for 3 months about the instruments that are going on. I'm going to take liberty, and if you trust me, I'm going to go up north, and I'm going to sift through and pre-arrange stuff. All arranging means is deciding who comes in when and who fades out when and stuff like that. And so that, Emmy, your job while I'm doing that is you got 3 months of vocal production. You're going to practice basically for what you want to achieve when it comes time for doing the real vocals.
Okay, so now we're going to go to vocals because that's a great segue.
Cool.
So when you're practicing these songs, are you practicing to the tracks that are available? Are you practicing just with you playing guitar or ukulele on them?
Usually the tracks that are available at the time, I asked for majority of them without the scratch vocal, and I would listen to them and just kind of get a feel for what I wanted to do and how I wanted to build the vocal as the song. So I wanted how I wanted to show emotion in certain parts of it, how I wanted to have inflections in my voice here that kind of conveyed that emotion, and how I really wanted to challenge myself, like as a vocalist. And many of the songs that we had written they just did that. They really challenged me. There were certain ones that even as they were tracking the real vocal, I remember being so like, there's certain points I'd be like, fed up with myself. I can't get this. What's going on? You know, like, but I knew I could, so I just kept pushing and kept pushing. But I knew that I would kind of have to prepare for that kind of feeling. So I continued to, like, I think a good example would be one of the songs called Doll. I remember being so fed up with the way that I had written that melody. I was like, why did I do this to myself? Why do I do this to myself? And then I realized I do this to myself because I want to be ever changing and ever growing, you know, that's the reason why. And I knew that I wanted to kind of show more strength within this vocal, and it kind of just showed my breath support within that as well, which was something that I had to work on thoroughly. So yeah, I think it was a lot of, you know, just sitting with the songs and, you know, learning the arrangement that I'm making and really getting to know them, like, inside and out. Like, it has everything to do with, you know, just getting to know their songs.
So you're practicing with the tracks, but he still hasn't added all the instruments.
No.
So
I don't have everything. I didn't have, like, everything yet.
Yeah, like a little timeline of it to where you can let people know where you're at within that process. So February, she did about 10 or 11 foundation tracks. I mean, the guitar and vocal. Those are a bigger deal than some people might realize, because that's the capstone of your entire structure.
because all the instruments are working off of that.
That's your arrangement.
So where the licks go, and
You got it.
The
So with
accents.
each one of those, we're actually in the room together, even dialoguing of like, how much of an intro should there be? You know, how many times does she strum through the phrasings before the vocal starts? Or on this one, maybe the vocal starts as it comes in. And, you know, is there an instrumental in this part? What are we expecting from that? And so there's a lot of decisions besides just like a live show. You play the song and you sing the song, and if you do it great, people love it. Whatever, she knows the pressure of 26 times saying, whatever I do here is going to affect every instrument and what that player does. And so she did about 11 of those in February. And in March, she did about 10 or 11 more. There's 26 songs, so there's some math in there that then we're still writing. So by February, also when we went to production, our writing team, we all switch hats now.
Yeah.
Mother Hamilton, you wear this. Emmy, you wear this. Fish, you're a songwriter now. We went into, I had just gotten off about a 60-day run where I asked them for permission, since I was going to be home with my wife for the surgery, not doing nothing. I was like, let me just write a bunch of starters, just the basic concepts of a song to pitch to y'all to see if they're the kind of things that me and Emmy talk about are needed. And then some of those made it, some didn't. And I know Mother Hamilton did the same. She had some lyrics started. You had some melodies started. And so when I came back, when we started production, Abby does foundation tracks, but we also start writing. A month later, she starts doing the rest of the foundation tracks. So then that was into March. Then when April hit, it was time to bring in the boys. Bobby and Randall to do the rhythm section. And that took 2 months basically of me coming back and forth.
that's what you're working with, right?
That's what she's working
That's
with.
what I'm working
Okay, so here's the question burning
It's like demo.
in my head, and I'm sure all of the
Yeah.
people watching. Once you go to do your final vocal, now you're doing it with the whole enchilada, right? You're suddenly hearing things that
Oh
you
my
didn't
gosh.
hear. So were there songs where just hearing all of that changed what you did vocally compared to what you had been rehearsing?
Such a great question. I love that.
Thank you. That's why I make the base.
Actually, I'm serious because that probably was one.
That's actually so true. I was sitting, I was sitting there listening to a lot of the songs that were fully done, and I was like, wow, there were certain parts I was like, oh, this is really busy. What I was thinking isn't going to work.
Oh, so you got to restructure your phrasing around that. Just
there were certain situations.
was that fun or challenging? No, the interviewers.
Yeah, go ahead. Young one.
So, let me tell you, it was so fun. It was a little bit challenging, but if it's not a little bit challenging, then what's the point? You know, like, it's supposed to be fun and like, if it's something that is just super easy for me when it comes to music in general, I just don't feel like I'm just drawn to it as much. I want to have a little bit of challenge with whatever I'm singing. And I was kind of happy for that part of it, but I did like that on certain songs there was less than I thought there would be. And I had a lot more room to roam.
Some space.
Had more space than I thought I would have. And sometimes it would change the song, but for the most part, like, not even just for the most part, for every bit of it was for the better, in my opinion. Like,
That's cool to hear.
I love everything about the songs. I'm proud of where it went. I'm proud of the vocal, and I sound strong, and that's what I wanted, you know, more than anything. So, yeah, it wasn't difficult to figure that out. It was just another hurdle to go through. Yeah.
So yeah, for me, that's the fun part is when you're singing with the whole thing, it's like it'll take my melody in different places, even though your scratch vocal is the foundation. But once everybody puts their art into it,
Yes.
it's like, oh, I can do this instead, and it's even.
I have a lot of those instances on like the endings of the songs. Like for one specifically, I remember one of the tracks kind of ended up having a lot on the end that had some dead space. And I remember being like, oh, I guess I could add in like some vocal, like trill, something, I don't know. Like a vocal,
So you compensated.
yeah, I compensated vocally for whatever instrumentation would have been there. And I think that was kind of cool because I got to add harmonies on top of that. It sounded very Dolly-esque, I thought, within like the recording process of that, because I love, you know, the harmonies being so light.
Which song? Which song are you thinking specifically of?
I'm thinking of Rescue for one,
Oh, that makes sense.
and for another one that I'm not going to talk about yet because I don't want to tell the title of it.
I know what it is. Okay, I was interested earlier. You were talking about how you get angry at yourself as you in your vocals.
Yeah.
Why didn't I do that? Where did I do that? How frustrated do you get with yourself? How much pressure do you put on yourself? How
I
frustrated?
probably do put a lot of pressure on myself, probably more than I need to at times, but I feel like at most of the time it's a healthy amount. And I tend to try not to be as much of a perfectionist, but I always am that way. Whenever I hear something, I can hear the tiniest thing that's off, and I'll be like, okay, redo it, whole thing. I didn't like it. I'm going back over again. But most of the time, I could see that, hey, this take was really good. I like this one. There's parts of it I really loved. But I don't like this one place. Used to, I would have been like, oh, delete the whole thing, blah. You know, I don't want to do that. But now I've learned that, hey, I can comp in certain areas.
Let me punch that in.
Yeah, I can be myself. And now I don't have to put on a persona. I don't have to overcompensate for that. Like whatever I'm, you know, whatever my ego is trying to, you know, accomplish. I don't know. But I just think that for me, I don't want to be that way. I don't want to be overcritical of myself. I want to love myself and, you know that, hey, I will push myself at times, but I'm not going to do too much of that to where I'm hurting myself.
Right.
So I feel like I try to have a healthy relationship with that.
Messing up and messing up words and
But having fun with it too.
yeah, or guitar player and breaking a string or whatever, and it's like so
That is really cool.
yeah, it's
Sometimes those imperfections, like within things like that, like they really do help artists to know that, hey, we don't have to be 100% all the time.
Yeah, and there is a point that that's actually charisma can mean more than perfection sometimes. So I'd even told Abby early on, I want to keep the perfect imperfections in the room. My theory is I wanted the album to sound like you won a contest where you could go and be the only person in the room at the most perfect rehearsal of EmiSunshine and the writing when she's just firing on all cylinders and band's just nailing it. And instead of the sound of an arena, I wanted each listener to go, I feel like I'm in the rehearsal space.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that's getting to hear what's going on. And with that, you do want those perfect imperfections. You know, where charisma outweighs accuracy sometimes.
Absolutely.
Emmy's standard for herself, it's very high.
It is.
I will say, being the vocal coach for EmiSunshine is like being the cardio trainer for the Incredible Hulks. The workout routine, like, it's intimidating because actually before me taking this role, you have been my vocal coach through my vocal tracking. But also, she had told me very early on that I could work her harder than she ever has, and she stood by it. I knew from everything she was telling me she wanted to exceed and excel past the vocals that she's shown in the previous albums. And that's a high standard. And I wanted to be as enthused as her to meet that. But we did have fun while doing it. There's a little stress to it because, you know, it could worry some people because they could look and go like, man, you are so determined. You were working night and day to do something that feels like it just comes natural to you. Are you too obsessed or are you, you know? But she has a healthy balance of it where she's obsessed out of appreciation for audience and for the standard for herself. But I could feel that pressure myself sometimes too, because honestly, there are times for first take, you could just be like, well, that was great.
Yeah.
But Emmy told me early on, we're probably going to spend more time per song than we ever have.
So how many,
Twice as many songs.
on average, how many takes
That's a good question.
do you hammer a song?
Well, if I could, if I was going on forever, like I would probably go on forever. Like I would.
She would.
I would, but I limit myself to 5 or 6.
And she will allow the input of about 3.
Yes.
Okay.
She'll sound skeptical to me if I go, sweet, is that all 3 are spectacular, that's really it. She'll want.
She's like,
for
okay,
a couple more.
I can-
But you will limit yourself to 5. It's a healthy obsession with vocals, but that's why she's one of the greatest vocalists I've ever known. You know, but I mean, there's a humility in saying, even though on the other side of the window you love what I did, I would still like to try to that, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and so we took that approach more than anything of like, well, yeah, let's.
But yeah, it was never that I didn't. It was never that I didn't respect like Fish's opinion.
There's a peace that comes with you. There's a peace that comes with you. Watching over me, you come to take my. Watching over me, you come to take my pain away. A comfort ain't no battle can bring. Wrapped up in this golden haze. Oh, Saint Mary Jane. Alright, starting to sound better.
That sounds like a great recipe of where you're doing the falsettos and the full throttle, and now you're really working it out smart.
So hallowed be thy name. There's a peace that comes to you. There's a peace that comes to you. No. There's a peace that comes to you, watching over me. Alright, I think I'm getting it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I absolutely appreciated his thoughts on it, but I always knew I knew when I could do better. I know when I can.
And a lot of times she surprised me and would totally be correct, right? You're like, I don't know how you're going to outdo that kid. And she'd be like, well, just let me try. And I say it'll be the next one, but it might be the next one. I'd be like, yeah, you're right. Did it.
You were right too. And like, I did another one, and yeah, it's good, but that other one was even better. You know, like there are some situations where that would happen as well.
And this part of the teamwork is just trusting each other to go like due diligence. Let's just see. But the vocal era, because that took about 60 days of me returning back and forth and working on it. That was a lot of fun because by then all the instrumentation was there.
All of the
And looking forward to that the whole time. You know, like the whole album's about the vocalist, and so that was actually like, if it was stressful, it was fun stressful, if that's such a thing. Like enjoyably high stakes, you know.
I think that's the exact same way. But I feel like that kind of put a fire under us as well. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
to me, I work pretty good under that pressure. You know, I feel like I work better that way in some situations. And yeah, I feel like I just loved every minute of that for me. I love the pressure of, you know, hey, let's get this done. Let's go, you know?
And she responds to
That's nice. That's nice. And I like that you give yourself 5 or 6, and it's like, okay, now let's again. That's good. And you keep pushing as you go.
As I go along, of course.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's very cool.
And sometimes I would change my arrangement as we went along as well. Like there was certain things like vocally that I would do on one take, but on the other one I would say, okay, I don't actually want to do that here because I'm going to fit something else a few lines later over here, and I don't want that to interact with this. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff within the vocals that just were so much fun to iron out and put together. So
Wow.
Very cool. Eddie Kramer, the producer, he did a lot of Kiss albums and stuff like that. But he told me once that you can perfect the great out of anything if you try hard enough. Yeah, you can perfect the great out of anything. And you look at like George Jones and Tammy Wynette duets and stuff, and it's like, man, they're pitchy. They're not so perfect, but there's something just incredible there.
And you were turning to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
So there's definitely that balance of perfectionist and the performance, wanting that the raw energy that you're going for, so people feel like they're in the room. So that's I love what you guys the mindset that you both had in this project is really, really cool.
Thanks. We're really proud of it.
I have a note here, and I don't know why. It says Randall's pitch, and I'm just so curious. What does that mean?
Oh, that was the part we were talking about where he pitched the idea of let's get it all through the amps.
Oh, that right there. Okay, I thought we were talking about.
So we got to talk about Randall's pitch.
Yeah.
Now, actually, joking aside, that was one of those things in the bullet point when I was presenting the idea. It is actually, I very much stood by Randall's pitch is so good that I wanted to capture the blood harmony in this album. Like most other albums, you've had backup singers and sometimes including me, an ensemble. This album primarily, I might be a smidgen of a thing or two, is really capturing the magic that Emmy's long-term audience has known. Like there's a magic between her and her dad singing together.
Be true, be kind, and be you. Ooh, why you always be you? Why you always, when the world tells you that it should change, be you. Why you always.
That was one of the big conditions. I was like, I don't want a bunch of backup singers. I want you guys to do the vocal arrangements in the room with me and have it be reduced to just the two of you, even if you're doing some layers, because there's times they'll blow my mind just as we're writing ideas with something, they just start harmonizing each other, and really that's a piece of history. You only get blood harmony every now and then, right? And so that's a big part of this album, actually.
Bye.